She stood at the back of the diner, shivering under her torn coat, her hands gently cupping her swollen belly. The scent of warm bread and grilled meat teased her senses, but all she could muster was a whisper. "Anything left?" The staff ignored her. A few customers glanced her way but quickly turned back to their meals. She looked defeated, her eyes sunken, her skin weary from the cold. But there was something in her gaze, something quietly determined. Inside the diner, a man in a sharp suit stirred his coffee, distracted. Through the window, his eyes met hers, just for a second. He looked away. But something lingered in his chest, a strange ache he hadn't felt in years. He stood, trying to shake it off, but curiosity pulled him outside. "Did you say something?" he asked her softly. She flinched but nodded, just ... if there's anything left. He looked at her, really looked this time. Her clothes were ragged but clean. Her voice, though low, was articulate. And that belly she was close to delivery. Without thinking, he handed her his takeout bag. "Here," she blinked. As he turned to leave, something inside told him this wouldn't be the last time he saw her. She devoured the food slowly, savoring every bite like it was the last thing she'd ever eat. Tears slid down her face, not just from hunger, but from the sudden kindness of a stranger. That night she curled under her usual bridge, stomach full for the first time in days. But she couldn't stop thinking about the man. Why did he help her? People didn't usually care, especially not men like that. The next day she returned to the same diner, not to beg but to just sit nearby, hoping to see him again. And he did come. Same time, same seat. This time, he saw her before she saw him. He walked straight to her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. "I'm fine." He didn't believe her but said nothing. "Why are you out here?" he finally asked. She hesitated. "Life happened. Wrong turns, and ... No one to catch me when I fell." The man, whose name she didn't yet know, stared at her for a long moment before saying, "Can I take you somewhere warm?" She shook her head violently. "No shelters. I'm safer out here." He didn't press further. But something inside him shifted. He wanted to understand her. And more than that, he wanted to help. He just didn't know how. He brought her another meal the next day, and the next. They spoke in short, guarded exchanges, till finally she said, "You don't even know my name." He smiled. "Then tell me." She hesitated, then said, "Amara." It sounded soft and powerful all at once. "That's a strong name," he said. She gave a shy nod. "And you, Elijah?" Over the next week, Elijah learned Amara wasn't addicted, wasn't mentally broken by grief and betrayal. She had once worked as a teacher's aide, loved kids, loved books, but love had also been her downfall. The father of her baby vanished when she needed him most. She lost her apartment, her job, and with no family willing to help, she ended up on the street, pregnant and invisible. Elijah didn't know why he kept coming back. He was a man who rarely let emotion guide him. But Amara, no. There was something extraordinary buried under her exhaustion. He saw intelligence in her eyes, dignity in how she sat upright. Despite her circumstances, he started bringing her books. At first, she didn't touch them. Then one day, he caught her reading The Alchemist with tears in her eyes. "Do you think I still have a destiny?" she asked. Elijah replied quietly, "I think you're just getting started." One day, Amara showed him a small cloth bag she kept under her coat, always close to her body. Inside were a few photographs, a broken baby rattle, and a dog-eared journal. "This," she said, "is my past, and what I hope my child will know someday." Elijah flipped through the journal. Poems, letters, names crossed out, names circled. One entry stopped him. Cold, it was written to her unborn child. "If no one else loves you, know that I did. If you grow up without me, remember I gave everything I had, including my pride." He closed the book and gave it back gently. "This is powerful," he whispered. She shrugged. "It's the only thing I've got left." That day, Elijah made a call to someone on his staff, asked them to discreetly find a motel room nearby. He didn't tell Amara. He just handed her a key card later that evening. "It's for you," he said. "One night, no strings." Amara stared at the key like it was made of fire. "Why are you doing this?" "Because something tells me you're the kind of person who changes everything." The night Amara slept in the motel, a violent storm tore through the streets. Thunder shook the ground. Rain drenched every corner of the city. As she lay on the bed, curled beneath warm blankets, she cried harder than she ever had before. Not from fear, but because for the first time in months, she felt safe. She touched her belly and whispered, "Maybe... Maybe you have a chance now." Elijah didn't sleep that night. He paced in his penthouse, watching the storm through tall glass windows. Something about Amara was haunting him. She reminded him of someone he once loved and lost, a sister who vanished into the system, a casualty of poverty and silence. He had promised himself he'd never get involved again. But Amara's strength, her quiet hope hit, was pulling him back into the storm. Morning came. He waited at the diner, unsure if she'd return. But then, there she was, wearing the same clothes, but walking differently. Straighter, stronger. She handed him the keycard back. "Thank you. It was more than a room. It was breath." Elijah smiled. "What now?" She glanced down at her belly. "Now I survive." 4-2. As Elijah drove her to the library, Amara told him she used to read aloud to kids at the school library where she worked. "Stories gave me power," she said, "made me feel like I mattered." That day, Elijah watched her from afar as she sat reading quietly in a corner, her fingers running over pages like they were sacred. A librarian gave her a side eye, but Amara kept her head high. She was back in her element, even if only temporarily. That evening, as they walked through a quiet park, Elijah asked her what she wanted after the baby came. "I want to be seen," she said. "Not as a burden, not as someone's mistake, but as a mother, as Amara." He looked at her, really looked. "Then we'll start there." She laughed dryly. "Who's we?" Elijah paused, his expression unreadable. "Maybe, I don't know, you and the world, maybe you and me?" That night back in her motel room, Amara wrote a new journal entry. "Today I felt seen. Maybe he sees the woman I forgot I was. Or maybe he's just the first to look closely." Elijah's assistant brought him a folder of Amara's background check. He didn't want to read it at first, but curiosity took over. There were no crimes, no red flags, just a single unpaid hospital bill and a court record showing she lost custody of a nephew she once tried to adopt. "She tried to save someone else before saving herself," he murmured. And the pieces began to make more sense. Meanwhile, Amara noticed people treating her differently now that she wasn't visibly homeless. She'd washed up at the motel, changed into clothes Elijah bought her discreetly, and carried herself taller. A barista smiled at her. A passerby didn't clutch their bag. It hurt to realize how invisible she had been before, and how easily people judged her from appearances alone. She asked Elijah, "Do people only care if you're clean?" He said, "People care once they recognize your story connects to theirs. It's all it takes. Recognition." Amara sat with that thought for hours. That night she whispered to her belly, "Maybe you'll grow up in a world where you're recognized." Elijah finally opened up about his sister. Her name was Naomi. She ran away at 17 after their parents cut her off for getting pregnant. No one ever found her. Elijah had searched hired investigators, dug into shelters, but Naomi vanished into the cracks. "She could be anyone now," he said, "or gone entirely." Amara touched his hand gently. "You saw me? Maybe you'll find her too." The connection between them deepened. No romance, not yet, but a quiet thread of trust and grief wove them together. Elijah started picking Amara up from the motel daily. He brought her snacks, books, and one time a stuffed animal for the baby. "I know it's silly," he said, embarrassed. Amara smiled. "No, it's beautiful." But Amara knew something was coming. Her due date was close. She didn't want Elijah to be stuck with her just out of pity. So one night she left the motel early and returned to her bridge, unsure why she did it. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the belief that happy things never lasted. Elijah panicked when he couldn't find Amara at the motel. He called, checked shelters. Nothing. His chest tightened with panic he hadn't felt in years. Finally, he drove past the diner and there she was, curled under the bridge again, shielding her belly from the drizzle. "Why?" he asked, pulling up beside her. "Why come back here?" Mara didn't look at him. "'Cause I don't belong in a world of people like you. People with private elevators and personal drivers. This," she motioned to the bridge, "this is what life gave me. Elijah crouched beside her, eyes burning. "And I'm trying to give you something else, but you keep walking away," she cried quietly, not from his anger, but because he was right. That night, Elijah didn't drive away. He sat next to her, coat over both of them, rain soaking his shoes. "Then we'll sit here until you believe you deserve more," he said. And that was the night Amara stopped running. As dawn broke, Amara gasped suddenly. "Oh," he kicked. She cried, holding her belly with both hands. Elijah's face lit up. She laughed through her tears. "I don't know. I just feel like it's a he." Elijah bent down, placing a hand on her bump gently. "That's the first time I've ever felt life move under my palm," he said softly. "Thank you." They sat there for hours watching the world wake up. A street sweeper passed by. A jogger smiled at them, probably thinking they were just another couple enjoying the morning. Amara felt something stir in her hope that maybe, just maybe, this baby would be born into something better. Elijah made a promise. "When the baby comes, I'll be there." Amara didn't ask what that meant. She didn't ask if he meant emotionally, financially, physically. She just nodded. "Okay." But deep down, a part of her still whispered, "Don't get used to this. People leave." It happened unexpectedly. They were walking through a quiet street when Amara suddenly froze. "Elijah," she whispered. "My water just broke." Panic surged through him now. Okay, don't move." He rushed to get his car. Her legs trembled as pain stabbed through her. Strangers walked by, clueless. But Elijah returned in seconds, carrying her into the car, his heart racing. They reached a hospital, and everything moved quickly. Nurses took her. Machines beeped. Doors closed. Elijah paced outside, helpless. She was in pain, alone. But she had asked them not to let him in. "I need to do this myself," she'd said. And he had respected that barely. Hours passed. Then the nurse appeared, smiling. "She's asking for you." Elijah walked in and saw her, exhausted, glowing, and holding a tiny bundle. "He's perfect," she whispered. Elijah approached slowly, and when she let him hold the baby, he nearly wept. "He looks like you," he said. Amara laughed. In the soft stillness of the hospital room, Elijah whispered, "What will you name him?" Amara looked down at the baby, his tiny fist curled around her pinky. "I want his name to mean something stronger than me, something ... undented." She paused. "Soul, like the sun." Elijah repeated it. "Soul." It felt right warm, resilient, full of promise. They stared at Soul, sleeping between them. For a brief moment, it didn't matter that Amara had once slept under bridges, or that Elijah came from boardrooms and suits. They were just two people joined by something unexplainable. A baby, a sunrise, second chance. And for the first time in a long while, Amara didn't feel like a mistake walking. But as they sat in silence, the door creaked open. A hospital admin entered with clipped words and sharp eyes. "Miss Amara, we need to discuss insurance." Just like that, reality returned. Elijah stepped in. "Bill me," he said firmly. But Amara raised her hand. "No, I'll figure it out." Pride flickered in her chest. "I may need help, but I won't disappear behind someone else again." Back at the motel, things shifted. Amara no longer felt like a guest. With Soul cradled in her arms, she was grounded, focused, fierce. Elijah checked in on them daily, sometimes bringing formula, other times just to watch Soul sleep. But people started whispering around him, his assistant, his business partners. "Is she your new project?" one dared to ask. Elijah burned with quiet rage. "She's not a project, it's a person." But those murmurs got under his skin. He started pulling back, not out of shame, but confusion. What exactly was he to Amara, and what was she to him? A friend? A symbol of redemption? Or something deeper? And did it matter if the world didn't understand? Meanwhile, Amara felt the distance. Saul's cries kept her up. Her body ached. The motel's thin walls offered little comfort, she wrote in her journal again. When people stop needing to save you, do they stop seeing you too? Still, she didn't reach out. She wouldn't beg, not again. It's not even for him. Days later, Amara received a letter slipped under her door. No name, just messy handwriting. "I know who you are." Her hands trembled. She hadn't used her full name at the hospital. She'd buried her past deep. That night, she'd barely slept. Every creak in the motel made her flinch. Was someone watching her? The next day, she confronted Elijah. "Did you look into my past?" He hesitated. "I did. At first, I was worried. I needed to know you weren't running from anything dangerous." Her eyes darkened. "And what did you find?" Elijah met her gaze. "Someone who fought harder than most. Yes. Someone who lost more than she deserved." She left the room quietly, soul against her chest. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just walked. Later, Elijah found her at the park bench. "I wanted to know your past," he said, sitting beside her. "But I stayed because I care about your future, with or without me in it." That was the first time she believed him. Sol wouldn't stop crying. Amara paced the motel room, her heart pounding. His forehead was hot. His tiny fists curled in pain. She rushed to the clinic nearby, panicked. The nurse barely looked up. "Do you have insurance?" Amara shook her head. "Please, he's burning up." A long pause. "Then wait here." Elijah arrived breathless, having gotten her missed call. One look at Sol, and he jumped into action. Within minutes, they were at a private clinic. Sol had a viral infection, treatable, but terrifying. That night, Amara sat in the hospital chair, clutching her baby, her soul unraveling. "I almost lost him," she whispered. Elijah put his arm around her. "But you didn't. You're here. He's here." For the first time, Amara leaned into him. Really leaned. Let herself fall just a little. That night, she didn't go back to the motel. She stayed at Elijah's guest room, soul curled between blankets, safe and warm. And just like that, she had crossed a line neither of them named but both of them felt. Elijah's assistant, Moran, waited for him outside his office. "This situation with Amara, it's costing you," she said coldly. "Clients are whispering. They see you as distracted, emotional." Elijah didn't flinch. Let them whisper. But she stepped closer. "You have a board meeting Monday. If you want to keep your position, you need to choose." He froze. "Choose," Marin nodded. "What? Your legacy or this woman and her child?" Elijah felt sick. It was a line drawn in cold business logic. Something deeper twisted inside him. This wasn't just about optics. It was about value. And suddenly, he realized he couldn't walk away from Amara and still recognize himself. When he told Amara that night, she expected him to say goodbye. "I understand," she said, voice low. "I've been walked away from before." But Elijah took her hand. "I'm not leaving. If my board wants a man who can stand by someone he believes in, they can find someone else." The board meeting was brutal. Old men in tailored suits with tighter minds questioned his sanity. A homeless woman and her baby. "What's the angle, Elijah?" He stood tall. "There is no angle. It's just decency. Something this company used to stand for." They laughed. Mocked. Threatened his seat. Elijah stood his ground. And in the end, the vote was split. Tied, the chairman broke it, keeping Elijah and warning him. "One more public stunt, and you're done." Elijah walked out of that room exhausted but proud. He hadn't caved, not this time. Back home, Amara waited. She had overheard parts of it on a call. She didn't say much, just reached out, touched his hand, and whispered, "Thank you." And in that moment, neither of them knew what tomorrow would bring. But they knew they weren't facing it alone. Late one evening, someone knocked at the penthouse door. Elijah opened it, tan, froze. A woman stood there, wild-haired, gaunt, trembling. Is this where Amara lives?" she asked. Amara appeared behind him and gasped. "Naomi." It was Elijah's sister, the one who vanished all those years ago. Shock rippled through them all. Naomi burst into tears. "I saw your story online. Baby. I knew it had to be her. I followed every clue." Amara stared, stunned. You're the woman who helped me at the shelter years ago. It's the one who gave me that bracelet." Elijah nearly collapsed. "You were there this whole time." Naomi nodded. "I was lost. But now, maybe we're all finding our way back." And as she held baby Soul in her arms, a family began to stitch itself back together, one broken piece at a time. Naomi's hands trembled as she held the bracelet Amara had worn for years. "I gave this to a girl at the shelter. ... I never thought it would lead me back to you," she whispered. Amara clutched the edge of the table. You were the only person who was kind to me when I had nothing?" Tears streamed down both their faces as they embraced two women who had once crossed paths in pain, now reunited by fate. Elijah stood in stunned silence. So many pieces of his life were now tangled together: his long-lost sister, the woman he had fallen for, and the baby he couldn't stop thinking of as his own. For the first time, it all made strange, beautiful sense. Naomi looked at her brother. "I was ashamed to come back," she admitted. "But now, ... I think this baby saved me too." At night, as Sol slept between them and rain tapped gently at the window, Amara, Elijah, and Naomi sat on the floor, eating takeout and laughing about nothing in particular. It wasn't wealth or luxury that made the night unforgettable. It was belonging, fragile, hard-earned, and deeply real. In the weeks that followed, Elijah found himself staring at Sol more often, memorizing his laugh, his little habits, the way he reached for Amara. There was one thought he couldn't shake. He needed to know. So one morning, without telling anyone, he took a DNA test. The result came in late at night. Elijah read it 3 times. Negative. Sol wasn't his biological son. But instead of heartbreak, something surprising happened. He didn't feel detached, felt protective, fierce, chosen. It didn't matter whose blood ran through Sol's veins. He loved him anyway. The next morning, he confessed to Amara. She didn't get angry. She just looked at him for a long, silent moment. "I didn't know who the father was," she admitted. "I only knew who wasn't going to be there for him. That's why I never told you he could be yours." Elijah reached for her hand. "I don't need him to be mine to love him like he is." One evening, as Amara walked Sol through the park, a man stepped out of the shadows. Tall, rough, unfamiliar, but with familiar eyes. "Amara," he asked. Her heart dropped. "Do I know you?" The man smiled coldly. "You did? I'm Sol's real father." Fear coiled inside her. She took a step back. "You need to leave." But he didn't. "I saw your story online. You're living good now. Must be nice, huh?" His eyes scanned her clothes. The stroller. "I want in." She returned home shaken. Elijah listened quietly, then made a call. Not to the police, but to a lawyer. "Let's make this right," he said. "Let's get you custody legal. Protected custody. No one's going to take Sol from you." Amara's voice cracked. "You really think I can win?" Elijah nodded. "We don't need luck. We have truth." The legal proceedings were brutal. The man from the park, Derek, showed up with a smug smile and a fake redemption arc. "I've turned my life around," he claimed. "I want to raise my son." Amara sat, frozen, heart pounding. She had nothing on paper. No house, no job history, just love. But Naomi spoke. She described the Amara who stayed up with Sol all night. The woman who refused to take handouts. The mother who chose her child over comfort every single day. Elijah testified too, revealing how he had watched Amara grow stronger, how she gave him hope. The judge listened carefully. And when the ruling came, Amara got full custody. Derek was denied visitation until he could prove himself clean, stable, and committed. He stormed out of the courtroom, defeated. Amara broke down in tears. "I didn't win because I had power," she whispered. "I won because I never stopped being his mother." That evening, Elijah took Amara to the rooftop garden of his building. It was quiet, lit with warm lights, and blanketed in stars. "I've watched you fight every day," he said. "I can keep pretending I'm okay being just the guy who checks in." Amara's heart skipped. He stepped closer. "I want to be more. For you, for Sol. I want us to be a family." Her throat tightened. "You don't have to save me." He smiled. "I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to join you." Then, with all the simplicity in the world, he said, "Will you move in with me?" Amara looked at Sol in her arms, his tiny eyes, his calm breath. She looked at Elijah, and for the first time since she asked, "Anything left?" She said yes, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. Moving into Elijah's penthouse was surreal. Mara packed her few belongings, most of them memories, and left the motel behind. Naomi helped carry Sol's toys. Elijah cleared out his sleek guest room and filled it with soft blankets, children's books, and baby-proofed every corner. But with every box unpacked, Amara struggled with doubt. Did she belong here, among the glass walls and marble counters? Could she be this woman a mother, a partner, and no longer a shadow in society? One night she stood on the balcony, watching the city glow. Elijah came up behind her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I just keep waiting for someone to come take it all away." Elijah wrapped his arms around her. "It's not going anywhere. You earned this, every step of the way." Naomi stood at the door with her backpack on. "I've got a shot at a counseling job out of town," she said softly. "For women like I used to be." Mara hugged her tight. "You saved me once. Now go save them," they cried. Sol clapped as if he understood the moment. Elijah handed Naomi a small envelope. "Just a little help to get started." She smiled. "I'll pay it forward. Every cent." As she walked away, Amara whispered, "She's going to change lives." Elijah squeezed her hand. "Just like you did, Amara. Just like you are." Dad. Whispers began swirling online. Photos of Elijah and Amara with Sol, screenshots of court documents, speculation. "Gold digger," one post read. "He's lost his mind," said another. Amara read them all, each word like a dagger. Elijah tried to shield her, but she refused to hide. "I'm not ashamed of where I came from," she said, "and I'm not ashamed of who I love." So she spoke out. She gave an interview raw, honest, powerful. She told her story from the street corner, to the courtroom, to the rooftop garden, where she found love. The video went viral, not because it was flashy, but because it was real. People who had once judged her now cheered for her. She wasn't a headline. She was hope. A woman approached Amara at a bookstore. "I watched your video," she said tearfully. "It gave me the courage to leave my abusive husband." Others followed. Emails, messages, requests to speak. "Share more." Amara blinked. Why me? Because people saw her. They saw not just the struggle, but the survival. She didn't want fame, she didn't want pity. But she realized she could help others, so she started small. Writing, speaking, telling her truth in quiet rooms to women who felt invisible. And slowly she began healing too. One morning, Elijah stood in the nursery. Sol was laughing as he tried to crawl away. Mara stepped in, holding coffee. "He's getting fast," she joked. Elijah turned, nervous. "There's something I've wanted to ask you." She raised an eyebrow. He knelt, holding a small box, not grand, not flashy. "Just real. You already gave me a family. Will you give me forever too?" Amara's hand flew to her mouth. Her heart beat wildly. She whispered, "Yes, yes, yes." Sol squealed like he understood. And in that tiny room, love roared louder than any past pain. They married quietly in the backyard of a small cottage Elijah bought for weekend getaways. Naomi returned to officiate. Sol was the ring bearer, wearing a tiny bodhi. Amara wore no veil, no diamonds, just a simple dress and the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. They danced barefoot under the stars. Guests laughed, cried, and cheered as Amara gave a speech. "I was once the girl no one saw." I asked strangers, "Anything left?" I never knew the answer would be, "Yes, everything." Cheers erupted, and Elijah pulled her close. To our forever, years passed, Sol grew, learned to walk, then run. He called Elijah dad. He called Amara hero. They moved to a smaller town, started fresh, not because they had to, but because they could. Every year on the same day Amara once stood outside that diner, she returned with food, not to beg, but to give, to listen, to hold someone's hand and whisper, "There's more left than you think." Her story wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. From a broken bench to a warm home, from whispers of shame to words of strength. And she never forgot to end her journey with a smile and a whisper. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more powerful stories, because sometimes what's left is exactly what saves us.